Matt is a senior engineering leader at super.com, where he champions the principles of data-driven servant leadership. He is a recognized thought leader in developer experience, management, and the science of measuring engineering organizations. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I haven't heard that read out before, but all sounds very impressive.
We like to hype up our guests here on Dev Interrupted. But hey, let's dive into it. We had chatted a little bit. I'm really excited to talk about some of the things that you're here for. Some engineering leaders view AI, which is it's a topic that everyone is talking about these days, but a lot of engineering leaders view it as a way to like save time, right? And as a result, a lot of organizations view it as a way to reduce headcount often. But you have a different opinion, and you think that might be misguided in a lot of situations. So let's start there.
Yeah. So my take on it stems from something I've been thinking a lot about as I kind of study and admire other companies that have become ultra successful. In particular, NVIDIA really focuses on a metric of revenue leverage per employee, and they have one of the highest proportions of this in the world. And so when I started thinking about the value that AI brings to our organization, and hearing a lot of the conversations from different people interested in the value of AI generating or improving efficiency or allowing us to produce more lines of code, that kind of thing, was this shouldn't be a conversation about tuning for efficiency. This should be a conversation about how we can take the time that we gain back and reinvesting it, or how can we leverage AI to make one developer have a much higher value generation leverage, essentially, is the way I think about this. And every time people get myopically sort of focused on the development loop, um, I immediately start to think, what about all the other inputs to this process? Because the value generation loop, the end-to-end product development lifecycle, if you will, in most software engineering companies, starts with a human writing an idea down, articulating that idea, or looking for an opportunity in the market for something they should be creating. And that process is time consuming, and that process is complex, and that process is often wrong. There's a lot of opportunity, I think, to apply AI there, considering again the whole value generation cycle. And some of those problems are a lot easier to solve too. Like again, we can make you get like just a straight one time step function improvement. Like developers are 20 or get 20% of their time back, and that's great, and that is valuable. But is that as valuable as, hey, we cut the entire total product lead time from having a notional idea about a product to being able to write a spec, to be able to get that spec ready, broken down into tickets and estimated, then start writing the code? If that process took us 20 days before and it takes us 10 now, that's crazy valuable as well, right? Because that means that it can start realizing its revenue potential earlier. And so when I look at this problem, I'm really still trying to consider it as a holistic problem where we have to just throw away the old paradigm and reinvent it in a new AI first paradigm where your product developer or owner, your developer writing the code, and your product designer are all sitting down collaboratively now, starting with AI first to generate an artifact they work from, instead of working in parceled work streams through Jira tickets in that traditional way that we have for however many how long has Jira been around? It's like I don't even want to know, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think you're hitting a really great point because with AI, this is a theme we've hit many times on this show. Our listeners are probably sick of hearing it at this point, but with AI, you can do more than ever before, and if you're doing the right thing, that's amazing. You're doing more of the right thing than you've ever done in the
Yeah.
past. But if you're doing the wrong thing or doing something that doesn't have value to your organization, you're just doing more waste
Yeah.
than you've ever done before. And really, what you want is for that more to result in more impact coming out of the engineering organization. So, if all your engineers are doing is using AI to migrate some deprecated system that none of your customers use anymore, then why are you even using AI to begin with? So I really appreciate that you have like a more of a focus on like making sure that AI is helping you reinvest into the organization in a more productive way.
Yeah, like people keep asking for, I think, a really interesting thing that maybe we should be a lot more vocal about, that we're coming to realize is um, our journey as a company has been one where we have, you see what our one of our original founders uh, talking about this all the time, but AI has been in our ecosystem, and we've been like aggressive, bleeding edge early adopters, and as a result, we've been able to ship more and more product, growing our company every year by these huge margins. But and we have not been growing the number of engineers doing that work every year. We've been relatively static as a headcount for the past several years, not as a strategic cost saving decision, but because we were able to get more and more value generation leverage because we were getting smarter at like our entire tooling pipeline and removing friction for developers and using tools like Linear B for developer enablement and speeding up that iteration loop and getting stuff out of people's way. AI is just another tool having arrived on the scene that allows us to further optimize that.
Yeah, and let's dive into that because you've emphasized that any change that you implement that impacts your engineer ultimately needs to improve developer experience.
Mhm.
That should always be your goal. So, how do you see AI reshaping the way that organizations prioritize developer experience?
There's actually kind of a hazard here that I've spent a lot of time thinking about this week, which is what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing is that the interaction surface area between a developer and the AI in the development tool chain right now uh, isn't making developers' jobs more enjoyable, more interesting. It isn't in many cases. In fact, uh, yeah, it's not making their job better. It's actually making it worse. And we have a lot of cases where this is true. For example, a really common hazard that I'm seeing all over the industry is someone will take AI, they'll point it at their code base, and they'll ask the following question: "What's wrong here?" Right? And
Oh, so much.
and you know
There's so many
and you know
things.
what the AI is going to do? What you just accidentally did was set a constraint. What you said was, you have to give me an answer
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
better give me a plausible answer. And so it's going to give you a plausible answer and you're going to spend a lot of time trying to validate it, coming to realize only later that if you had approached this conventionally, you would have produced a much higher quality engineering result. And it's not to say that AI isn't going to get better at this. It absolutely certainly will, but these kinds of behaviors are going to still be there. And so something that I'm having to constantly coach people on is what you should have asked was, here is what I'm trying to do based on some investigation I've done ahead of time, or help me investigate how this behaves. Okay, I have a notional idea of how I'd like it to behave that I think is better. What do you think? Great. And that like you kind of use it as this like interrogative and collaborative process to enhance your intuition, your direction, not give me the answer. Give me the answer gives you the data set it was trained on, which is going to give you a globally mediocre average answer in most cases. And we see this with AI code generation, right? Like it's 4x or 10x test writing. You're going to hear this everywhere. But then you look at the tests and you're like, did you instrument every single condition of testing all of those endpoints separately instead of just writing something that was reusable logic?
yeah.
And the AI is like, "Yep, I sure did
I
because
mean, if you can
I
generate the code in 10 seconds,
yeah,
like, why not
yeah,
do
there's no
that,
cost to it. There's no cost to it except for, the global depletion of all drinkable water, but we'll get into that later, but yeah, like and I think fighting against these patterns is gonna be something interesting, in how we, like, train people to use the tool effectively, to remember to be rigorous, to remember that some of those fundamentals are gonna be even more important than they were in the past, right? Like, uh, peer review of the code that you write is now going to be a harder problem because AI might write 4 times as much, and
Right.
you weren't in the loop when the logic was being generated.
Yeah, and, sort of tying, some of the points we've been making together, it's like, not only do you want to focus on reinvesting time into making sure engineers have more impact, but if you're overwhelming your engineers with AI slop, for the phrase that, a lot of people apply to this, and making their job worse, you're actually potentially making your system less efficient rather than more efficient. So by doing more, you're actually slowing things down effectively. And I think that's a lot of organizations don't always account for the new bottlenecks that they will create by not properly like adopting AI within their organization. And speaking of adopting AI, it's not just about tooling, and we've been saying this a lot. Like, you shouldn't seek to adopt a tool with AI. You should seek to solve problems and then find the AI tool that solves that problem and apply it appropriately. And adopting AI, it's a very deeply human process. It affects humans. Humans have to use it. So, what are some practical steps that you think engineering leaders can take to make sure that you have buy-in from your engineering team, that you have alignment across engineering, particularly when you're rolling out like AI-powered workflows?
Yeah, we were chatting just a little bit before this interview, and I was sharing that like I came to this realization, having been here for ELC, that um, it's still the same problem to solve, or it's still the same methodology because there's still human beings involved. And if you don't align incentives to the developer primarily as your goal in all decisions you make at the organizational level, whatever you're trying to do will fail no matter what it is. Because, what drives organic adoption and what sticks as culture is when you're like, hey, I removed annoying friction for you so you can enjoy your job better, so that like more of your day can be spent in the like wonderful flow state dopamine loop
Yeah.
creator that makes us all happy to do our jobs. Anything that works against that is going to hurt you, and eventually you'll just have like a slow degrade of resistance where people are like, oh, this has some novel use, but it's not going to stick, right? Like they're not going to keep coming back and using it as a tool if you haven't aligned those incentives. And so when we first started measuring organizations for things like cycle time, we had to make it a non-punitive process. We had to say like, hey, this metric is representative of when you as a an engineering manager or as IC get into a healthy pattern. And we had to show, quantitatively, because like everybody who writes code is somewhat of a math nerd. We had to show quantitatively, like, how you're enjoying yourself, and I have data that shows that you're enjoying your job more and you feel more empowered. Well, guess what? At the same time, we got like those loops got shorter, and that's not an accident, right? Like,
Yeah.
happy developers make great stuff, and happy developers are generally more productive. Same thing here, right? Like if we force every developer to become just a line cook that makes engineering specs that an AI writes the code for, I'm not sure anybody is going to want that job. So we really have to think hard here now. Like we're at a pivotal point where we need to think about what the human interaction mode is for working with AI, but we better align with the people who are going to use it before anybody else, right? Like, don't align with your accounting team first. Align with your developers.
Yeah, so I'm just curious, because I know that you are, you are an organization that really does look heavily into, both qualitative and quantitative metrics. So what have you seen as an organization while you've been on this AI journey? Like, has there been changes to your metrics that have been expected or unexpected or that have surprised you? How has that been?
Probably the most interesting thing is our learning velocity has gone up. I wouldn't say like there's not been like, because we were lucky we did turn on our AI adoption happened very fast, a very short period of time. So there is a pretty clear demarcation point where there was like the past way and the new way, and what does the data look like between them? And other than net lines of code going way up, which does not equal that, like that doesn't
Yeah,
mean we generated more
that's
value. That
usually
might
terrifying,
that might
actually, when
yes,
that happens.
yeah, it keeps me up at night for sure. But we were able to increase our experimentation velocity a little bit. We were able to handle more discrete work streams per quarter related to a product or feature change. And so we've just gotten a lot better. If you look at our experimentation velocity as an organization, the
Yeah.
only way we're able to do that is we have so many intelligent little tools all throughout our process that are assisting us, so that I don't need to go mind, the thing that's currently running. I just get like a push notification. And this is where like automation generally, but AI enabled automation is really starting to like help that process. Um, and I think, yeah, like I wouldn't say, and I think anybody who tells you otherwise is probably telling you a lie. But over and over and over, as I talk to every other leader, the consensus is we're still all really figuring this out, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
Everyone is.
yeah,
Yeah. So you've mentioned this accounting mindset a couple of times now. We've kind of dabbled in it a little bit. So I want to address it a little more directly, because there's a few mindsets about how to measure like developer productivity or developer experience, that kind of thing. Efficiency always comes up. Like if you're lucky, your organization also thinks about quality as well. At least you should. But let's think about this accounting mindset. Like why is that approach doomed to fail? And what should you do instead?
It's doomed to fail because it's a fundamental misunderstanding of the value that um, AI is generating, but previous to AI, it's a fundamental misunderstanding of thinking of a developer generating code as a cost center of any kind. Um, they generate the capital asset that generates revenue, right? The sooner it becomes real, the sooner that revenue generation potential can happen. And our job as software engineers and as companies that make software products is to get the successful and the useful product into our customers' hands. I think when you're getting these efficiency gains, you should always think about them as reinvestment opportunities where you can improve the quality of the product. You can explore more new possibilities for your product. You generally are improving the value generation leverage of the engineer on your team. And you might be able to have slightly smaller atomic unit teams, which would be that certainly will make people who think of the human capital cost as a problem. Wherein like now, because we're able to deliver so quickly, where you would have 4 developers and 1 PM and 1 product designer, that new atomic unit, I think might shift towards a team that's more like 2 full-time engineers because they're able to do a lot more. We've removed all this friction. But thinking of it as like, "Oh, I can fire 20% of my staff if I'm 20% more efficient," isn't true because they also like they're all doing things that interlock. So if you remove one person, you've just hobbled the team in reality. you, you, that was a poor choice for 2 reasons. And I think the other reason is like we have to be like I'm a very human-centric leader. I really think that building trust is hard and destroying it is super easy. So a really great way to destroy that trust is to start firing people because especially the software developer because you think AI's gained you some efficiency. I guarantee you it hasn't. There's a tax in there that you haven't accounted for.
Yeah, yeah, and I've shared this anecdote a lot on Dev Interrupted episodes, but I was once on a team that was measured by the number of commits and the number of lines of code that we had changed. Like that was our KPI, and it's amazing how easy, even before AI, it's amazing how easy it was to just fake that metric. And in
Oh,
the age of AI, it's so much easier now. Like you don't even have to think about it. Actually, you can have agents that just do it automatically.
yeah, we'll just name the agent Goodhart's agent, and it'll just sit there in the background and make 100 billion tiny nails.
Yeah, yeah. So given that, Linear B is like the sponsor of Dev Interrupted, and I know that you're a customer of Linear B, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about how your journey with Linear B has been because, I know that, we've been talking a lot about metrics. Linear B has been a big part of your journey with AI and just even beyond that. So how has that played a role within like both AI adoption, like both before and after and developer experience as a whole? Like how is the metrics and the AI automations, like how has that played a role within super.com and all the changes that are happening this year?
Yeah, I mean, pre-AI, it was a use of developer productivity tool, Linear in particular, was a huge cornerstone of the culture we built around developer-led self-improvement. So we have like a metrics review process that is a coaching session with the developer and the product manager that happens completely exclusive of the performance management process. It is like, it is meant to be non-punitive and is purposefully decoupled for the purpose that when we got people to buy into it as a like a foundational cultural element, like I'm doing better at my job if I'm great at applying the resources measured as, capacity accuracy and planning accuracy. And if cycle time becomes a very important thing to my team, enabling me to do stuff like, hey, this is a little bit long running. That is an opportunity for me. Like, worker B comes into the channel and is like, hey, this thing's long running. That isn't meant to be a punitive performance trigger. That is meant to say, do you need help? How can I unblock you? This is a learning moment. Do you want to pair? And when we really ingrained the how the like quantitative measure related to the behavior that made you better at your job and be able to deliver faster and be able to be more effective as a contributor to that team, it was a sea change. Like we were able to go from when I started the data within the organization, we were cycling on average in like 100+ hours for any given piece of work. And today, the org as a whole is sitting at, I think we're sitting at 38-hour cycle times. And in a world of AI, that's still, that metric is still going to be indicative of our value generation cycles. And I imagine we'll just see, like, again, we'll be able to shrink it a little bit more because all of the inputs to cycle time or total product lead time just become more efficient. So we're as we introduce new stuff and things are changing very fast with the AI tools, we're able to see that we're getting that kind of like additive value to that process and those cycles happen faster.
Yeah, and what I really I think appreciate most about, just everything you've shared with us today is that I think really what's sort of at the center of the culture you build is this high trust environment. As you said, trust takes a lot of effort to build, really easy to destroy. Metrics are probably one of the most effective weapons at destroying trust within an engineering organization if they're wielded wrong,
Yeah.
But when you have buy-in, when you have alignment, when everyone understands why they're being applied and feels empowered to be a part of using them to improve, I think they can be a really powerful tool. And an AI shouldn't have to disrupt that effort. So it's really great to hear success stories too, because I've heard so many stories that go the opposite direction as well.
Yeah. I mean, I like, again, I think what you have to do is look at this problem of saying like, where is my constraint? Understanding where your constraint is in your end to end process, not just writing code, like everything that is involved. Focus on that constraint and then ask, what's AI doing here? And that's like you've immediately got your priority order of like, what's my constraint? Is there an adjacent possible applied solution that somebody's already got out there that I can experiment with myself that's AI powered, and then do that. And you'll find that it's probably not code generation. You'll find out that probably your constraint today is like, it's probably your decision making process
Yeah.
for what you're supposed to do. It's probably product ideation. It's probably product planning.
I
It's
recently
probably,
heard vision generation, like coming up with the vision for the next thing,
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like imagine if we all lived in a beautiful world where we had big full funnels of like data vetted ideas.
Yeah, yeah,
Because like something we are looking at is like, hey, can we have AI write feature changes as smoke tests where we don't really care if it's fundamentally broken, but it gets a signal on like what that feature might be if we fully implemented it? That's pretty low stakes, and the complexity of what has to happen in the background for that kind of a change is pretty low, and that
yeah,
feels really adjacent possible. Same thing for like market research. We start writing PRDs. I have a bot that just like scans the PRD. I'm gonna turn this on in the next few weeks actually, but we've had fairly good success with like having it just crawl the documents and do everything from like look for its standards compliance for the copy that we're going to use to look at all of our different competitors and see if they have related features and then compare them and then add notes about it in the document that I've produced. And I don't need to have a person go out and read
yeah.
that anymore. And that seems like a great use of this powerful tool that's really has a great aptitude for that. Where again, it's like, please, please fix this complex architectural multi-service thing is like it's gonna give you garbage. And we know that. Like it's like anything that isn't greenfield or on the like testing side, things haven't gotten really a lot better in the last 2 years.
Well, Matt, thank you for joining us today. If our listeners out there want to follow you after tuning out from the show, where's the best place to follow you?
Yeah, I mean, just shoot me a line on LinkedIn. I'm doing a better job of like sharing some of the research that we've been doing inside the company lately. So I'm sure you'll see me on some more podcasts. But yeah, just drop me a line on LinkedIn. You shoot me an email, matt@super.com. I'm real easy to get a hold of. I'm kind of notorious for like every time I find an interesting person and an interesting leader or somebody doing some innovation somewhere else, I'll just add them on Slack and we just like I think that's kind of it's a lovely world that like the tech community becomes very small when you're like, yeah, I'll message Brian on Slack. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Awesome, awesome. Really cool. Well, thanks again for joining us. It's really great to get your insight today. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in this week. If you're not subscribed to our Substack, make sure you head over to devinterrupted.substack.com. Give us a review over wherever you listen to your podcast, and we'll see you next week.